we're two women who think that we are fairly progressive, and yet this food, the house, the curtains, the diapers, it's still our job along with having a full-time job.
Yes.
What have we done to ourselves? Feminism has come and bitten us in the ass. Is she here yet? Okay, now I'm panicking.
Oh, you outdid me.
Big is always better.
I'm hot.
Listen, I'm not playing this game.
Your person God is just fallen off. His bum is that good.
Scuba diving.
You want to go scuba diving?
Sitting there going,
Khanna, just stop talking. Now you're embarrassing.
Gopi, stop it, Gopi.
Thank you for being here. When we were looking for icons in journalism, yours was the only name that came up. How do you feel that wherever you go, your job comes first? You as a journalist come before Faye the person. Like if you go to a party, you know, usually when you go to parties and if doctors go to parties, people ask them for tips about health.
Hurting.
Yeah. Can you do something about my left elbow? When you go, do people come and ask you, you know, I filed an FIR, what's happening? Or my local MLA is doing this. Does that happen to you?
People who meet me for the first time, especially in this sort of uncle category, you know what I mean? The people who watch news all day. So they're the types who will start a conversation, say, don't quote me, like as if I'm going to write down everything every uncle says in a dinner party. But invariably, the conversation becomes, goes back to politics. I'm not shy to say I'm better equipped to handle those conversations than those people at dinner parties. So I wind up winning most of those informal debates to a point. I make everybody sad. So my husband has banned me from having any sort of current affairs conversation with anybody at dinner parties. So I just politely nod and leave.
But even I have stopped having dinner party conversations about politics. I think it just ends up in fights and you don't manage to convince anybody.
Unfortunately, people are reading a lot of bias confirmation material, right? So you already believe something and you live in echo chambers in your WhatsApp groups. And so your other uncle friends will send you stuff that sort of confirms what you already believe. It needn't necessarily be true. And so you just feel better and more confident.
I used to look at Twitter and get all my news. So where would you say that people should get news from? And don't say follow me. That's a given. But aside from that.
So I think that it's really important to ask yourself, and as readers of news, we innately know what is good and what is bad. You know that the journalist in front of you, whether you're reading or watching or listening to that person, shouldn't be giving you their opinion, should only be telling you what is happening. You also know when you are being manipulated to feel certain things. Like, oh, this is really bad, you should feel angry, or you should feel sad, or this can happen to you tomorrow. So there's a lot of manipulation of emotions that happens. Avoid anything that you find triggering. Avoid journalists who give out opinions, and avoid journalists who are very obviously leaning on one side or the other.
Listen, I'm an opinion columnist, so you can't say avoid journalists who get
No, see, there's a difference between, and this is really important. I'm so glad you brought that up. There is a difference between information in the news, where you are told what has happened, and then the opinion, where I know you are, an opinion columnist. When I come to you, I know that I'm coming there for your opinion.
When we spoke last, you told me that you are going to give news which is without an opinion.
Yes.
But even in that, people have started finding faults by saying that, oh, but you're only reporting news which is against one political party. So you can't win this situation.
So I think, see, that way the internet will always have something to complain about. They'll complain about the table that you have set if they could.
But they did last time when you were here. They complained that we made you sit on an uncomfortable chair while I sat on a comfortable sofa, for God's sake.
So obviously the internet doesn't understand the rules of production and why people have to be placed a certain way. But my response to most criticism is that it is not my job to make any government look good.
No.
Our job is to just report what has happened. So our job is to report policy, our job is to report current events across states. And we prioritize, and my team and I prioritize a piece of news depending on how much it impacts your life. So if something pops up, we look at it and say, is this news? Somebody went to the airport wearing a certain outfit. It's not news for me. I don't carry that information. A government which is running our entire country has made a decision Is that important? Yes, because it impacts most of us. And then there are state governments, and then there are city governments. There are a certain number of people who come under, who are influenced by the decisions of these governments, and that's how we decide what is important or not. So if there is a government that is running a large part of the country, is running the whole country and then many states, invariably their decisions and the impact of that decision gets carried a lot.
Yeah.
So,
And they don't even realize you're not criticizing a particular government, you're criticizing a particular policy.
also,
And
and
that
I
could be
don't
with
criticize.
any-
I don't
yeah.
criticize at all anymore.
Now you
but
don't. No, but
yeah.
you used to.
I used to.
You've been a journalist for how many years now?
20.
You started as a teenager, right? I mean, you did. You started as a teenager in All India Radio. How old were you then?
I was 20. I was 20.
How did you get into that?
So I was doing my masters when one of my classmates said, "Hey, you know, All India Radio is auditioning, and I want to go, but I'm too nervous to go alone. Can you come with me?" So I said, "Okay, I'll come with you." And we went there, and it was a really simple audition. They gave us a sheet of paper, and we had to just read out the words into the mic. And they were checking how you pronounce your words and this and that. And I speak Kannada, and that was a benefit because sometimes some announcements go out in Kannada as well. And so we both auditioned, and I was just giving her company, and we came home, and I got the job, and she didn't.
You're a bad friend.
We're still friends though. And she was very sweet about it. And it was a freelance position. And you could either work early mornings or late night. And I was going to college in the morning, so I used to work the late night request show. This was in Bangalore, but it was fun. And every hour we would be given a sheet where we'd have to read the news. So that was the first time I read the news.
Then you started working, and slowly you reached and sort of heading Mirror Now.
Yes.
And I remember seeing, that's when you got into the national spotlight, and I remember seeing you there and those debates. There was one also about sanitary pads, because I was working in the field at that point, and you told viewers to go home and on their dining table talk about menstruation. And I just thought to myself, as if this was happening to men, we would not even be having this conversation about taxes.
Absolutely.
Sanitary pads.
Yeah, they would make such a big deal about it.
I mean, you can imagine, they'd be taking 7 days off every month.
No, because the reason why I said that, and I remember it clearly, is because the GST, they were deciding, they were setting GST. It started quite early. It was a 2-year campaign. GST was just happening in the country at that time, and there was this committee that was setting the tax rate on GST, and there was a campaign. There were many NGOs involved. They approached us saying, "Hey, this is the problem." At that time, only 12%, I think the number's higher now, only 12% of the women in our country had access to sanitary napkins. The rest were using cloth, they were using leaves, sawdust, and it was life-threatening at that time. And they said, if we can bring down the tax and all of these things, so we started a campaign. And I got trolled, and I remember when I started the campaign, many people in my team said, "You know what, primetime news is when people are having dinner. Do you really want to talk about menstruation then?" And I was like, damn right, because when I have dinner, I can't stop menstruating now. It's not an option, right? So if we have to put up with it, then everybody has to talk about it. It was a leap at that time to say, "Hey, you know what? We're going to do this at dinner time. And we're going to tell our audience to do it at dinner time." Because half of everybody has a period. And I remember the trolling. That was the first time during that campaign that I was properly trolled. When you have 4,000 negative messages in one day and you're thinking, what did I do?
It's happened to me many times.
And then at one point you sort of I can look at it now and say, "Oh, this is organized trolling," and then throw it out. But at that point, it really messed with my head a little bit, because I thought, did we get the story wrong? Did we get our numbers wrong? We went back and checked the numbers, because there was this whole, no, it gets offsetted, so it's not good, something. We checked our numbers and we were right. And it took a lot to sort of stick by it. The then finance minister actually made a statement, and it was pretty scary. But we stuck with it. And they abolished the tax eventually.
They abolished the tax. So at that point of time, I was doing Padman. I went on a talk show on BBC, and they asked me a little bit about that. So I said, the only reason why, and this was in UK, so why Viagra is tax-free and sanitary pads are taxed, is because policies are made by 65-year-old men with erectile dysfunction. I said that, I came back home, Padman was releasing, and I wanted to call a few ministers for the showing. Two of them didn't come, and then a friend in the ministry told me that they're very offended. So I said, but I'm not even talking about India, because here Viagra is also taxed.
Yeah.
You left Mirror Now and you started your own company. And would you like to go on record why you left?
I just felt that there wasn't enough room for me to do the kind of work I wanted to do. I felt that they were cramping my style per se. And my answer to myself was, I will do it as long as it's honest. And the moment it stops being honest, I'm going to stop doing it. And that's what I did. Over a period of time, there were more and more questions being asked. Then I was being asked to sort of submit or justify what story I was going to choose every day, what lines I was, the lines, what's written on the screen. There were instructions being sent, don't do this, don't do that. I didn't listen to any of the instructions. So it would become more and more uncomfortable. I brought it up, there was a flashpoint, and it just, didn't work out after that.
But when you step out on your own, now you're still with the news, reporting the news, but you don't have this padding, you don't have lawyers, you don't have, a battery of people that you can say, okay, can you fix this? Didn't that worry you? Like, how scared were you?
Terrifying. It was terrifying. So there were many things that I needed to do all over again because it was it was a sudden exit. So I didn't have time to mentally sort of prepare for it. I'd worked as a journalist for 17 years at that point, and then one day I had nothing. And in that one day, they sort of packed up my office and sent it home and sent me an email saying, don't come in from tomorrow. So it was, it was a lot of things.
Yeah.
So initially there was just anxiety, like physical anxiety, difficulty to breathe anxiety every morning. And this would happen, as my husband would get ready to go to office and I had nowhere to go. Because you know how you wake up in the morning and you have this like, oh, I have to do these many things today. And I went from having a really crushingly demanding job to having nothing. I went to therapy first because I knew I needed it. And then did this whole exercise of re-examining, do I want to be a journalist at all? What kind of journalist do I want to be? What kind of journalism do I want to do? How do I, and I kept asking myself this, and my therapist had advised me to do it, to ask myself what I want people to think of when they think of me, and then work in that direction. So it's not about having a job, but it's about what your contribution to society should be. And I eventually realized that I have no employable skills, so I would have to be a journalist. And I also realized that the kind of work I wanted to do, which was really toned down, which was, and I decided also I didn't want to do the kind of work I was doing on television, which was very adversarial, which was very angry, very questioning, because I didn't think that it was good for anybody. When I decided that, yes, I'm going to be a journalist, not having the padding of a legal team and, all of that just really seemed scary because it's a difficult profession right now. But thankfully, I also have a lot of great friends who are very good lawyers who said, we've got your back. Also, it made me more cautious. I'm a far more cautious journalist now than I was on television.
You had this no-nonsense demeanor.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I don't know if it's a shield or your stainless steel from top to bottom, but you must have dropped it a little, at least to let this partner that we spoke about in.
Yes,
What was that?
I'm a goofball at home, by the way, which nobody knows. We were actually colleagues for a very long time. We were assigned to work on the same show. He was the producer, I was the anchor. We spent most of our time fighting. It was really funny because we're very, very different people. He's really into films and Bollywood, and that was a world that he sort of introduced me to. And I like superheroes. I read a lot of current affairs, and I'm very into justice and all of that. And at that point, I was a personal finance journalist. So I was very two different worlds. But I think that we just had fun together.
No, go back. Wait, you fast forward a little bit. Tell me that moment when it kind of crossed from comfort to lust that day.
Yes.
What was it like?
So he's really cute, even now.
Looking?
Yes.
Okay.
He's really cute looking
It's
even
a little
now.
superficial, but okay. I also have a partner who's cute looking.
Cute looking.
So I get that.
It was really funny. So we were working together, and I had this sort of, I shouldn't date someone at work. That's just like weird, and everybody will start talking about it. And we were in a new channel that was being put together. So it was a new team also, although we had known each other earlier. And at that point, I just moved back to Mumbai from Bangalore. So I was living in Bandra, and he was living in Kalina. Yeah, you should get your snacks. It's a long story.
Getting ready.
And I would drive a little alto at that time. So we were working in Lower Parel, and every day when I was leaving work, he would come running and say, hey, are you headed home? I say, yeah. Can I come along? And I'll, hop off halfway and take a rake. And I said, yeah, come along. And I realized now he was doing it just to get that extra hour with me. And then we would reach Bandra, and I had a lot of friends, and I'd always have a plan. So I'd get to Bandra, and it would be time for him to get out of the car, and I'd be like, okay, now we're here at the lucky signal. What do you want to do? we're like, so what are you going to do? I was like, meeting my friend for dinner. Okay, I'll come along. I'd be like, all right. So after a while, all of my friends would be like, what? Like, why is this guy always here? And I'm like, I don't know, he wanted to hang out. And then after we would have dinner, he would say, oh, you know, I really like the coffee you make. Can you make coffee?
Oh no,
And we would come home and I would make coffee. And at that point, I was really into coffee. We'd drink coffee together and finally he would go home. And this went on for months before we started dating.
He didn't make a move, nothing. He
Nothing.
came for these dinners.
Yeah, and he would just like spend his entire evening hanging out with my friend and drinking my coffee. And then we started dating. And then after that, he turned around and said, hey, listen, I drink tea. And we were, from that point, I think we were married within the year. It was just really quick after that. It just made sense. It just seemed natural. It seemed,
No, I think a man who can stay with you for 6 months and not have his favorite drink and pretend he likes coffee is a man worth keeping.
Yeah, and it was, I think the most amazing thing about Sagar is that he believed more in my career than even his own. From the time we started off, he was convinced that I was meant for bigger things, and he could see a future that I couldn't. So every time I would do something, he would push me to do something else, and a lot of where my career has gone from then till now is stuff that he has thought up and not me. And I give like almost all credit for my success to him.
So basically, behind every woman, there's a man holding a coffee cup.
Yes. And that he doesn't want to drink, poor guy.
And now you're a mom.
And now I'm a mom.
How old is your son?
1.5 years.
Okay, so you've gone past the sleepless nights now.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have vomit on your shirt, you just have mashed potato or something.
I still have vomit on my shirt on some days.
You know, having a fetus is like having a parasite. It's
Yes.
like a tapeworm.
Yeah.
It is
It's a
technically
tapeworm, yes.
We love
It's
these.
an adorable tapeworm,
It's
but
an
it's a tapeworm.
adorable, cute tapeworm with, you know, half the genetics from your in-laws. But still, But motherhood changes you. It's the only phase in your life that you were compelled to grow. Other people spend a lifetime trying to grow, and here you have it.
Yeah, you have no choice.
You've grown. How has it changed you?
In every way. There is nothing about me that is the same. I mean, you know, anything that you used to love to do before is different now. You can't shower for as long. If you enjoy washing your hair, for example, that's no longer an option.
You shower? You can't even change a tampon properly. There's someone knocking your door. Mama, can you give me more limit on my iPad? I'm like, now, right now, at this moment,
At
can
this
you wait?
moment, no. When I was driving over to meet you, I was laughing about the fact that there used to be a time when I would enjoy having lunch in a restaurant by myself. The idea of sitting by yourself is such a luxury because there's just a sensory overload of things that you have to do. And again, nobody tells you about the mental load of you're running out of diapers and ye order karna hai, didi ye khatam ho gaya, and that needs to be done, that plumbing work and that curtain is loose. The reason why this is different from before you have kids is because I didn't give a damn about all these things before I had kids. But now I have to care that the house is safe, that the food that we're buying is good and well chosen, and something else is organic and something else is made at home, and you know, all of these things, you suddenly start to care about stuff that you didn't matter before that.
Again, we're two women who think that we are fairly progressive, and yet
Yes.
this food, the house, the curtains, the diapers, it's still our job along with having a full-time job.
Yes, yes.
What have we done to ourselves? Feminism has come and bitten us in the
You
ass.
know, when I had the baby, I realized that this, you know, feminism is I was just telling myself things that were not true.
Yeah, I was this big flag bearer, equality,
Yeah,
equality, but equality has meant double the work.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, fine, so I'm equal, you will treat me with respect, but I'm doing double of everything
Of
you're
everything.
doing.
Of everything. And I get really annoyed when people say, oh, but you're such a super mom. And I don't want to be.
No.
I don't want to be a super mom. I remember being, for the first 1 year of my son's life, I was just pissed at my husband all the time because his life didn't change at all.
Yeah.
And here I was not sleeping, I was breastfeeding at that time, I didn't have enough mind space to even read what was going on in the world, right? And my husband was traveling at the drop of a hat for work, and he's like, Acha, so I'm just going to Delhi. And I was like, what? And then at one point he went for a meeting and he was hanging out at a friend's house, and he called me from there to say, I played tennis. I thought I would stab him. I was like, how do you get to play tennis? Like, what is this? And the worst part was, and after all of that, he gets to say, I have a son.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you don't have a son. You're a family friend at best at this point.
Uncle.
I have the son. Like, I am the one doing all of the work. How can this be like equal? How can this be fair? But it's so hard.
It's tough either way. It's tough if you don't work, because then
Yeah.
there are other consequences of that. There's a certain independence that you enjoy when you are working, because you
Yes.
have you also feel a little bit like saying that, okay, I'm bringing this much to the table, so I have a right to sit at this table.
It's so sad, right?
It is sad.
It's so sad. It's so sad. It was, this morning when I was getting ready to meet you, my son has now, and he's a year and a half, so he's barely speaking. He comes running into the room and he sees me dressed. And he starts doing this because he knows that I'm going to leave, right? It broke my heart that instead of like running into my arms, he knows that, okay, bye. Like, I know you're leaving. And the logical part of my brain is saying, yes, but he's going to be proud of his mom when he grows up. And there's another half of my brain that's telling me, you're such a terrible mother.
Yeah, that's always.
Yeah, because and these two halves are always talking at the same time. Nobody's
always.
listening.
Yeah. One is a bua and one is a masi. And they just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
In the mornings, I like to write in the morning. So when she wakes up and she comes to my room, if she sees that my computer's in my lap, she'll go back. And I have that moment that I actually do want to cuddle her, and I don't want her to feel like I don't love her. There's that little bit of disconnect where you leave your work, and so I'll get up and I'll go to her, and then I'll be like, but I've left that, I need to get back to that, otherwise I will lose these hours that I
Do
need.
you feel that also because, on one hand we have all of this information, but because we have all of this information, we're constantly worried about traumatizing our children, and they'll wind up in therapy because of something we
They're
did.
going to wind up in therapy regardless and
Irrespective.
blame us. So I'm not worried about that. Fearless Faye, that's your nickname, at least in our office. Do you ever change into frightened Faye? And what frightens you?
Oh, all the time. Everything frightens me. Now, at this moment, climate change and global warming. Specifically also after I had the child, and I was like, oh God, what a hot mess. Literally, we are passing on to these children.
I think
And the more, obviously because I'm reading the news all day, the more I read about it, the more terrifying it is. It's nice for each of us to say, oh, we're going to turn out our lights and not use the AC, but that's not enough anymore.
No, it's not enough.
We need for entire governments to make large sweeping decisions.
And now we live in hope that it will change. Since we can't look into the future,
Yes.
we do
And
have
stop
another
depressing
way.
everybody.
Slightly depressing, but it's the truth. And
Yes.
so what if the truth is depressing?
Yes.
So can we have our game bowl? This is it.
Yes.
You have to pick a chat,
Okay.
and there will be a question, and you have to decide what kind of a retort you have ready. Your turn.
If you're working so late, then how will your husband manage? Because he's a grown person.
Manage what?
Manage
A
what?
bank?
Right?
I think that's
Just
about all
quietly
we-
put that down.
Oh, you're one of those angry feminists, aren't you? No, we are the ones who are now wondering why we were the angry feminists since we're doing double the work.
Yeah, I was just exhausted now. Like someone said, let's just let the men we just sit back and just let them do it. Faltu mein, why are you always taking pangas? Oh, this is one I get asked a lot. I can't help myself. I'm just like, I'm needlessly aggressive. I have baby weight.
I mean, you're picking these. It's not like I'm asking.
These are the
you.
reasons why.
Pakka plastic surgery karvaya hai. I wish people say this to me. At least I know I'm looking good.
You're always looking good.
I'll be
Yeah, you're
happy.
always looking good. Just let her do whatever she wants. Women are too emotional to be CEO. So I am founder, editor, CEO of my company, bitch, and I'm not too emotional, as I have already illustrated.
अच्छा पैसे कमा रहे हो तो now you're too big for your boots.
My answer is yes.
Yes.
I am too big for my boots, and I will also manage my own finances and be the
And
CEO.
I will ask them, how much are you earning? And then they will just be quiet.
Yeah.
For some reason, numbers are it's like almost a euphemism for Satan. Your age, your salary, even your grades. People don't want to talk about numbers. I'm going to ask them, how much do you
Yeah,
make?
yeah.
Your turn.
Oh, wait. Arey, lighten up, it's just a joke. I'm not sexist. Neither am I angry.
Or aggressive. Or on your period. Okay.
Whew, that's the last one.
Oh God, she's looking like such a buddhi amma.
Who says that?
No, people do. They keep saying you're
Yeah.
looking like such a buddhi or you're looking like this. I mean, you, even though you're like 20 years younger than me, look like the back of a dented bus. Look at yourself first. At least I can blame my age. Who can you blame? Your parents?
So bad genetics.
Thank you so much for being on our show,
It
making
was my
this so
pleasure.
much fun, not eating any of the snacks I've laid out. But it was lovely having you. I didn't have to do anything. You did everything because you're so used to it.
No,
Thank
it was
you.
my pleasure.